This film was rejected by one of Hollywood's major studios, and even the lead actors didn't believe in its success. Yet, instead of becoming just another low-budget comedy, it became one of the most commercially successful films in its genre, and achieved the status of a cult classic, remaining beloved for over 30 years. Movies Inside Out presents Home Alone is a Christmas family comedy by John Hughes and Chris Columbus, about an 8-year-old boy who is accidentally left home alone and has to face off against a pair of bumbling burglars. What misfortune helped the director join the project? Which actor was the most difficult to work with? What tricks did the filmmakers use to shoot the most dangerous scenes? And which country has a special love for this movie? Find out all this and more in our new video. Let's go. The creation story. The story of Home Alone began in 1989 when writer and producer John Hughes finished work on the dramedy Uncle Buck with John Candy and Macaulay Culkin and started planning a long-awaited vacation. While preparing a packing list, he jokingly remarked that the most important thing was not to forget his kids. Then he wondered, what if a child was actually left home alone? What would he do? Inspired, Hughes immediately envisioned Culkin in the lead role and sketched an 8-page outline of the script. Drawing from his childhood fear of burglars, he decided to weave that element into the story. Initially, Hughes planned to collaborate with Warner Brothers and assured the studio executives he could make the film for just $10 million, a significantly smaller budget than the average movie at the time. However, Hughes soon realized he had underestimated the costs. Worried that $10 million wouldn't suffice, he secretly met with representatives of 20th Century Fox to see if they would finance the project if issues arose with Warner Brothers. Hughes' instincts were correct. When the budget swelled to $14.7 million, Warner deemed it too high and demanded it be cut by $1.2 million. The film's producers stood their ground, but Warner refused to budge and canceled production. The project was swiftly picked up by Fox, which ultimately approved a final budget of $18 million.
How come you didn't bring more cheese pizzas?
Nice tip, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Initially, Hughes considered newcomer Patrick Red Johnson as director, but Johnson was busy working on Spaced Invaders. Hughes then remembered Chris Columbus, who had been slated to direct National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but exited due to clashes with actor Chevy Chase. Incidentally, Hughes later admitted he had considered directing Home Alone himself, but feared it would flop, a decision he later regretted. Hughes offered Columbus the scripts for Home Alone and Reach the Rock. Columbus chose Home Alone, finding it funnier and more appealing, particularly because of its Christmas theme. Columbus also made unpaid revisions to the script. One of his major contributions was the character of Old Man Marley and his estranged relationship with his son. This addition brought emotional depth and sentimentality to the film, giving the finale its heartfelt touch. Casting of actors. John Hughes immediately suggested Macaulay Culkin for the role of Kevin McAllister to Chris Columbus.
I made my family disappear.
However, Columbus felt it would be unfair to simply hand over the role and organized a full casting, auditioning around 200 young actors. Ultimately, he met Macaulay and confirmed he was the perfect Kevin. One of the contenders for Kevin's role was Jeffrey Wiseman, who later appeared as Mitch Murphy, the neighbor mistaken for Kevin during the head count. Interestingly, Wiseman also auditioned for Richie Rich, but once again lost to Culkin.
Merry Christmas.
The role of burglar Harry Lime was initially offered to Danny DeVito, Robert De Niro, and John Lovitz, but none were interested. Rowan Atkinson, Alan Rickman, and Bob Hoskins were also considered, but the part ultimately went to Joe Pesci.
Hello.
Marv Merchants, was first offered to Pesci's close friend Daniel Stern, who initially agreed. However, when the production period was extended from 6 to 8 weeks without a pay increase, Stern dropped out. Daniel Roebuck was cast instead, but after 2 days of rehearsals, Columbus realized there was no chemistry between him and Pesci. Roebuck was let go, and Stern was convinced to return to the project. Neither Pesci nor Stern believed the film would be successful, and decided to experiment with roles outside their usual repertoire. John Hurd, who played Peter McAllister, even thought the movie would turn out terrible. However, after seeing the final cut, he apologized to Columbus for doubting the project. Al Pacino was also offered the role of either Harry or Peter, but declined due to other commitments. Similarly, Jeremy Irons, Michael Richards, and Christopher Lloyd were approached for the role of Marv, but were unavailable.
How could we do this? We forgot him.
We didn't forget him, we just miscounted.
What kind of mother am I?
Kirstie Alley was considered for the role of Kate McAllister, but casting director Janet Hershenson suggested Catherine O'Hara, with whom she had worked on Beetlejuice. It's been 36 years, and Catherine O'Hara is still working on Beetlejuice?
What the fuck?
Beetlejuice in the house. This is your brains on drugs.
Devin Rattray and Michael Marana played Kevin's older brothers Buzz and Jeff.
It's pretty cool that you didn't burn the place down.
Thanks, Buzz.
While Angela Guthels and Hilary Wolf took on the roles of sisters Linny and Megan.
You're what the French call les incompetents. What?
The roles of older cousins, Heather, Tracy, and Sandra, were played by Kristen Minter, Senta Moses, and Diana Campianu, respectively. Matt Doherty and Jedediah Cohen appeared as older cousins Stefan and Rod. Anna Slotky portrayed younger cousin Brooke, and the part of Fuller was played by Macaulay Culkin's real-life younger brother Kieran, marking his feature film debut. Most of the young actors had minor roles in lesser-known films prior to Home Alone. However, as a preview of the future, very few managed to establish successful film careers after the movie.
If you come back, I'll never be a pain in the butt again. I promise.
The role of Old Man Marley went to Roberts Blossom, who later described Home Alone as one of the highlights of his career.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
While Blossom's character is suspected of being a killer in the movie, the actor had previously portrayed a serial murderer in the 1974 film Deranged. Uncle Frank was originally intended for Kelsey Grammer, but his schedule conflicted with the production, and the role went to Jerry Baman.
Look what you did, you little jerk!
His wife, Aunt Leslie, was played by Terry Snell.
Allow me to introduce myself. Gus Polinski. How are you?
Polka King of the Midwest.
John Candy, who appeared as Gus Polinski, the Polka King of the Midwest, agreed to take part out of friendship with Hughes and was paid just $414, the minimum wage set by the Screen Actors Guild. Candy's scenes were shot in a single day due to his tight schedule. Interestingly, he was good friends with Catherine O'Hara, with whom he shared screen time. Tragically, Candy passed away on O'Hara's 40th birthday. The filming process. The production of Home Alone took place from February 14th to May 16th, 1990, in Chicago and its surrounding areas. The iconic three-story McAllister house is located at 671 Lincoln Avenue in the village of Winnetka. At the time of filming, the house belonged to a family who had purchased it in 1988, and the owners continued living there during production. However, the house was primarily used for exterior shots, while most interior scenes were filmed on custom-built sets inside the abandoned gymnasium of New Trier High School. The treehouse in the backyard was also constructed specifically for the movie and was removed after filming concluded. The only parts of the actual house used for filming were the grand staircase, basement, attic, and the second floor landing. In the 1990s, the house became a popular tourist attraction, but the current owners have since closed it to visitors. The exterior shots of the local church were filmed at Trinity United Methodist Church in Wilmette, while interior scenes were shot at Grace Episcopal Church in Oak Park. Airport scenes were filmed at O'Hare International Airport, which doubled as both itself and Paris-Orly Airport. However, John Candy's scenes were shot at the now-defunct Meigs Field Airport. The gangster movie Angels with Filthy Souls featured in the film doesn't actually exist. Specific scenes for it were shot in just one day, shortly before principal photography began.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Mom!
The main characters, Johnny and Snakes, were played by Ralph Foodie and Michael Guido, respectively. The title was inspired by the 1938 crime drama Angels with Dirty Faces. Interestingly, the script didn't include a title for the fake movie, and it was created on set to label the VHS tape. According to the creators, working with Joe Pesci on set was particularly challenging. Pesci was frequently dissatisfied with the quality of the dialogue and complained about the early start times. After nearly getting into a fight with an assistant director over the inconvenient schedule, the call time was adjusted from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
A dead kid.
By contrast, Macaulay Culkin impressed the crew with his professionalism and maturity, unusual for a 9-year-old. However, due to his young age, Culkin was only allowed to work 5 hours a day, which meant all his scenes had to be shot before 10 p.m. This posed challenges for filming, as many scenes were set late in the evening or at night. For this reason, many close-ups of scenes involving both children and adults were filmed at night using only the adult actors. Catherine O'Hara recalled that she often had to interact with a tennis ball on a stand instead of a scene partner and respond to lines read aloud by the script supervisor. Pesci avoided interacting with Culkin between takes to maintain the on-screen antagonism between their characters. However, the young actor bonded with many of his co-stars. In 2014, O'Hara revealed that Culkin still jokingly calls her mom. Pesci frequently forgot he was acting in a family movie and instinctively used profanity in his lines. While he disliked swearing in front of Culkin, he struggled to stop.
What? What happened?
The only expletives that made it into the final cut were "shit," accidentally said by Daniel Stern when his foot got stuck in the doggy door, and "hell," which was used in separate scenes by Pesci, Stern, O'Hara, and Foodie.
Why the hell did you take your shoes off?
Why the hell you dressed like a chicken?
Where the hell am I?
Scranton.
Put on the doorstep and get the hell out of here.
John Hughes insisted that all actors stick closely to the script, but he made an exception for his friend John Candy. As a result, almost all of Candy's lines were improvised. The pages of the Playboy magazine that Kevin flips through were carefully glued together to ensure Culkin wouldn't see anything inappropriate.
No clothes on anybody. Sickening.
The filmmakers had to work hard to create the movie's most painful yet hilarious moments. The Christmas ornaments Marv steps on were made of candy, and Stern wore flesh-colored rubber socks in some scenes for added safety. The nail Marv steps on was also fake, as was the chair used to pin Fuller against the wall. However, the tarantula crawling on Marv's face was real, and its name was Barry. Stern had to portray his terror silently because screaming might have scared the venomous spider. Fortunately for Stern, the scene was completed in a single take, with the scream added during post-production. The iron that falls on Marv's face was also real. To capture the shot from Marv's perspective, a 220-pound camera was attached to a cable, dropped toward the actor, and stopped just short of his face. If anything had gone wrong, the camera could have killed Stern. Despite being a comedy, the set atmosphere was often tense. Crew members prayed that the actors and stunt performers would come out unscathed during each risky scene. Due to budget constraints, many stunts were performed without harnesses, mats, or safety cables. The scene where Harry's head catches fire was filmed using a mannequin. Production designer John Muto employed Pepper's ghost, an optical illusion that involved reflecting the burning dummy onto glass positioned at a 45-degree angle in front of the camera. The shot of Kevin nearly being hit by a van was filmed in reverse, as evidenced by his unusual walk, the exhaust being pulled under the vehicle, and his scarf being unnaturally drawn toward the van. In more dangerous scenes, such as Kevin sledding down the stairs, falling off shelves, and ziplining, Culkin was replaced by 30-year-old stunt double Larry Nicholas. For the sledding scene, a cable system with brakes was used to control the sled's speed and ensure safety. While no one was injured during filming, Pesci accidentally bit Culkin too hard while rehearsing a scene where Harry threatens to bite Kevin's finger. To this day, Culkin has a scar from the incident. The photo Kevin finds among Buzz's belongings, showing a chubby girl with braces, was actually of a boy. Columbus felt it would be too mean-spirited to mock a real girl's appearance. One of the most logistically challenging scenes involved the McAllisters running through the airport to catch their flight. Though it lasted less than a minute in the movie, it took several days to film. The scene featured over 1,000 extras, each positioned carefully to prevent accidents. All stunts and effects in the film were practical. The sparkle of Harry's gold tooth, Kevin's memories of his relatives, and the BB gunshot were hand-drawn directly onto the film by a friend of John Hughes, who charged just $600 for his work. Chris Columbus initially wanted Bruce Broughton to compose the score, but Broughton declined due to his commitment to the rescuers down under. Columbus then reached out to Steven Spielberg, who helped him connect with John Williams. Williams loved the early cut of the film and eagerly agreed to compose the soundtrack. In addition to Williams' original compositions, the film features traditional Christmas songs like O Holy Night and Carol of the Bells, an adaptation of a Ukrainian folk melody. The film's theme, Somewhere in My Memory, was also composed by Williams. The movie includes several interesting references. Harry Lime was named after Orson Welles' character in the 1949 film The Third Man. John Candy's character was inspired by the real-life polka king Jan Lewin, who toured internationally with his band. The M imprint from Harry's branding nods to the poster for the 1931 movie, M. The iconic image of Culkin on the movie poster is rumored to have been inspired by Edvard Munch's painting The Scream. And indeed, there is a resemblance. Movie mistakes and errors. Let's take a look at the funniest bloopers and mistakes the creators of Home Alone left in the film. This beloved classic may be iconic, but some details didn't escape sharp-eyed viewers. Buzz's changing hands. Buzz stuffs an entire slice of pizza into his mouth with his left hand, but in the next shot, he's holding it with his right. Then, somehow, the uneaten slice is back in his left hand. Looks like Buzz pulled off a little magic trick for the audience. Heather's double counting. Heather manages to count herself twice. She even mistakenly includes Mitch instead of Kevin. The result is still 11 kids instead of 12. It seems Heather was in such a rush that she lost track of the count. And Kevin. The closed airplane door. When the McAllisters reach the boarding gate, the airplane door is already closed. Normally, passengers wouldn't be allowed on after that, but somehow the family boards anyway. Maybe they got lucky or had some secret access. The magic airplane. The family flies out of Chicago on a 3-engine Douglas, but they land in Paris on a 2-engine Boeing. Looks like the airline offers mid-flight magical aircraft swaps. And to top it off, their flight departed in the morning, even though American Airlines Europe-bound flights only leave in the evening. Daylight in Paris. Looks like the McAllisters have a time machine. They were supposed to land in Paris at about 2 a.m., but they somehow arrived during broad daylight. Time here clearly doesn't follow the usual rules. Self-lighting bulb. A garage light suddenly turns on between shots. Looks like someone decided to give Kevin an impromptu light show. Living sports figures. The figurines of athletes on the shelf change positions between shots. Even with one eye closed, Kevin somehow hits every target dead on. He must have a natural talent for precision shooting. The door's sudden move. In one scene, the front door suddenly opens wider by itself when the shot changes, as if it's welcoming Kevin. Looks like the door wanted to join the action. The rebellious scarf. Kevin tosses his scarf over his right shoulder, but it slips off, only to reappear on his shoulder in the next shot. This scarf clearly follows its own rules. The supercharged sled. If anyone tried to recreate Kevin's sled stunt, they'd crash into the wall. But Kevin's sled, equipped with hidden wheels, somehow launches perfectly out the door. Even his parents couldn't have predicted that. The wrong payphone. Kate uses a payphone in Paris to call Chicago, but these phones weren't used in France. French payphones required cards, not coins. Maybe she found a secret payphone? The vanishing portrait. A portrait of Kevin that's visible early in the film disappears when he runs from Old Man Marley, but reappears later. Perhaps the portrait decided to take a little vacation. An airplane from another universe. In the Paris airport, an Eastern Airlines plane is seen. The problem? Eastern Airlines never flew to Europe. This plane must have come from a parallel dimension. Kevin's moving foot. In one scene, Kevin's foot appears on a higher shelf labeled Chicago Bulls, even though it was on a lower shelf moments earlier. The endless red-coated woman. When Kevin runs from the cop, the same woman in a red coat with skates on her shoulder appears twice. She clearly doesn't want to leave the frame. The wandering hockey stick. Before Kevin slides between a hockey player's legs, the player holds his stick in front. In the next shot, it's suddenly at his side. Looks like the hockey player adjusted for Kevin's convenience. The flying cap. A cop holds his hat on his head as he falls, but it somehow ends up on the ground a moment later. Looks like the cap decided to take flight. The shape-shifting license plate. The Wet Bandits van plate changes from 4566 to 4565 when they almost hit Kevin. This plate must be a master of disguise. The disappearing Tide bottle. The Tide detergent Kevin puts in his shopping bag disappears, but magically shows up at home. Teleporting groceries are becoming a classic for this movie. The missing mirrors. The driver's side mirror disappears in one shot, and the passenger side mirror moves higher. Even the mirrors wanted to play musical chairs. The shape-shifting sweater sleeves. Kevin's sweater sleeves and the position of his lighter change between shots. Looks like even clothing and props wanted to get in on the action. Kevin's quick change. Kevin wears khaki pants all day, switches to jeans when he gets home, and then reappears in khakis. He must be a quick change artist. The unlocked door. Kevin doesn't lock the front door after rushing inside, even though he knows the burglars are watching him. Looks like Kevin forgot about basic safety. Instant ice. Kevin pours water on the steps, which instantly freezes, even though there are puddles around, suggesting it isn't that cold. Or maybe the steps have built-in cooling like an ice rink? Vanishing snow. Snow visible outside the basement door disappears in interior shots. The heated iron. When the iron hits Marv's face, it leaves a full face burn mark, even though it wasn't plugged in. This iron came with a surprise feature, the misdirected M burn. When Harry grabs the hot doorknob, The M on his hand should be sideways, not upright. Looks like the M wanted to pose for the audience. The moving burn mark. The burn mark on Marv's face shifts from the right side to the center. Even the burn mark wanted some screen time. The disappearing crowbar. When the burglars slip on the toy cars, Marv's crowbar disappears briefly, only to reappear. Looks like the crowbar wanted to join the chaos. The color-changing spider. The live tarantula is gray-brown, but the fake one turns black. Even the spider decided to get a makeover. The swinging rope. The rope holding two burglars wouldn't sway the way it does if it were carrying their actual weight. Maybe they weigh as much as feathers? Even Macaulay Culkin admitted one glaring plot hole in the movie always bugged him. Why didn't Kevin just call the police when the burglars tried to break in? Did you notice that or spot other mistakes? Let us know. Deleted scenes and bloopers. Several scenes from Home Alone didn't make it into the final cut, though they didn't impact the storyline much. These scenes offered better character development or added humorous moments. Here's what you missed in the deleted scenes. Buzz threatens Kevin that if he doesn't leave his room, he'll hang him on Old Man Marley's door. Uncle Frank asks Kevin what the French will call him. When Kevin says he doesn't know, Frank pulls down his pants and quips, "Shorts." While disguised as a policeman, Harry chats with the pizza delivery guy and considers paying him a visit at home. Harry laments how people used to stay home for Christmas, but now they travel everywhere, making him hate the holiday. Kevin runs into Old Man Marley after sledding down the stairs and flees in terror. Peter McAllister's brother's family greets the McAllisters at the airport with a banner, but they crash through it without noticing and rush past. Harry suspects Kevin might know their plans, but Marv dismisses the idea, saying Kevin's just a kid. They then drink coffee from stolen china. Kevin brushes his teeth with the unpaid-for toothbrush, then panics and wipes his fingerprints off it. While everyone stays awake worried about Kevin, Buzz snores loudly without a care. Lenny tells her father they should still celebrate Christmas, even without Kevin and Mom there. Kevin asks a store employee what liquid to add to the washing machine to make clothes soft and smell nice. We'd tell you, if they'd taken out an ad with us. Director Chris Columbus also wanted to include a fantasy dream sequence where Kevin's furnace comes to life and chases him. However, this scene would have cost around $1 million to produce. Ultimately, only the part where the furnace lights up and yells at Kevin made it into the movie. Now, let's enjoy a compilation of bloopers and hilarious moments from the set.
You know, you could get locked up for moping with intent to gawk.
Someone's in my house! Oh, my mom won't allow me to say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I'm a...
Yeah, you're a stranger.
Uh-huh.
Oh, come on. Are you afraid to go out the window, Harry? I'm Harry.
Washing machine that makes your clothes feel as fluffy soft as a kitten. It smells. Ma'am, you think my parents would leave me home alone?
Worldwide recognition. The premiere of Home Alone took place in Chicago on November 10, 1990, with a wide release following on November 16th. During its opening weekend, Home Alone grossed $17 million, almost covering its production budget. The film held the top spot at the box office for 12 consecutive weeks and remained in theaters across the United States for 9 months. Ultimately, Home Alone earned $285.7 million, becoming the highest-grossing film of the year in North America. The success of the movie even led to the creation of a new term in Hollywood, to be home alone, referring to films whose box office revenues suffered due to Home Alone's dominance. Internationally, The movie earned an additional $190.9 million, bringing its global box office total to $476.6 million, over 26 times its budget. Home Alone also became the highest-grossing comedy in history, holding that record until the release of The Hangover Part 2 in 2011. For 28 years, it also reigned as the highest-grossing Christmas movie, a title later claimed by The Grinch. Meanwhile, Macaulay Culkin's salary for the film was just $100,000. By comparison, his fee for the sequel would rise to a record-breaking $4.5 million for a child actor, while Daniel Stern would earn only $1 million for his return. Critics responded positively to the film, though less enthusiastically than audiences. They praised the excellent cast, particularly Culkin's outstanding performance, as well as Chris Columbus's direction and John Williams's soundtrack. The film's creative traps, vivid depiction of the burglars, and unconventional humor for a family movie also earned accolades. However, some critics considered these same elements to be flaws. They accused the film of being overly sadistic toward adult characters and criticized its unrealistic plot, which, in their view, made it hard to truly worry about the protagonist's fate. Home Alone received nominations for several prestigious awards. John Williams's original score was nominated for an Academy Award, as was the song Somewhere in My Memory, which also earned a Grammy nomination. The Golden Globes recognized the film with nominations for Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical, and Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical for Macaulay Culkin. Still, the film and Culkin managed to win several awards, including the Young Artist Award, the Kids' Choice Award, the British Comedy Award, the American Comedy Award, and a prize from the Chicago Film Critics Association. Despite its monumental success, the filmmakers faced challenges following the movie's release. French director René Manzor, who in 1989 made the horror movie 3615 Code Père Noël, about a boy fending off a home intruder dressed as Santa Claus, accused the producers of Home Alone of plagiarism. Manzor claimed that the American film was a remake of his own. However, as his movie had not been released in the US at the time, he was unable to substantiate his claims. Soon after the film's release, a novelization and several video games were created. In 2015, artist Kim Smith released an illustrated adaptation of the story. The commercial success of Home Alone inspired the creation of a sequel. In 1992, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, also directed by Chris Columbus, hit theaters. Most of the original cast reprised their roles, and even Angels with Filthy Souls received a sequel, Angels with Even Filthier Souls. Audiences enjoyed the second film almost as much as the first, though critics were less enthusiastic.
You're not at all worried about Kevin.
Why should I be? No, he's acted like a jerk once too many times, and this time he caught it in the butt.
After a 5-year hiatus, Home Alone 3 was released in 1997. However, it bore little resemblance to the original films aside from the premise and John Hughes' involvement as producer and writer. Chris Columbus chose not to work with the new cast, and Raja Gosnell, the editor of the previous films, stepped in as director. The third installment became the most expensive in the franchise, but failed both commercially and critically. In 2002, a TV movie titled Home Alone 4 was released without any involvement from John Hughes. The film centered on Kevin McAllister, but felt like it was set in a parallel universe. The character was played by a different actor, and much of the story contradicted the original narrative. Unsurprisingly, audiences and critics widely panned the movie. Despite the failure of the fourth installment, another TV movie, Home Alone 5: The Holiday Heist, came out a decade later. Like the third film, it had no connection to the McAllister storyline. While reviews were still negative, they were slightly less scathing than those for its predecessor. In 2021, a new Home Alone film was released, essentially rebooting the first movie. As expected, it was poorly received by both audiences and critics. Chris Columbus expressed his opposition to the reboot, saying that Hollywood should focus on original stories rather than attempting to remake past hits unsuccessfully. And it's hard to disagree with him. Home Alone had a significant impact on the careers of its cast, though for many, it remained their most iconic project. Macaulay Culkin's popularity skyrocketed after the film, but he has yet to replicate his early success. Today, he appears in low-budget films and TV series. Kieran Culkin didn't achieve much fame as a child, but found success in 2018 with a lead role in the series Succession, earning numerous awards. Devin Rattray, who played Buzz, hoped the movie would be a springboard for his career, but he became typecast. Not only was he offered similar supporting roles, but fans of the film would often approach him in real life to berate him for Buzz's behavior toward Kevin. Joe Pesci, already well known for his work with Martin Scorsese, cemented his success with Home Alone. However, he now rarely appears on screen. Daniel Stern continues to take on comedic supporting roles, voice characters in animated films, and try his hand at directing, though Marv remains his most memorable performance. John Hurd, who played Peter McAllister, gained fame through the film after a career of minor dramatic roles. Despite his comedic success, he continued to pursue serious roles in film and TV until his death in 2017. Catherine O'Hara became truly famous after Home Alone. She continues to appear in small comedic roles and lends her voice to animated films.
That's not gonna work. Monster!
Perhaps the greatest impact was on Chris Columbus's directorial career. Following Home Alone, he went on to create hits like Mrs. Doubtfire, Stepmom, and the first two Harry Potter films. Home Alone quickly became a Christmas classic and remains a staple of holiday TV programming worldwide. The film is particularly beloved in Poland, where it has aired on national television every Christmas season since the 1990s. In 2010, plans to cancel the broadcast led to protests by around 100,000 people. Needless to say, the much-anticipated screening went ahead as planned. Does Home Alone rank among your favorite Christmas films?